Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and this is a huge video, and I don't know the last time I needed to come into the studio after midnight to make a video, but here we are. It's after midnight, and Canon has just announced the development, keyword development, of their flagship R1. So what did we get? We got some information. I'm gonna give you the biggest information at the very end of this, but we also got a photo. Here's some of the stuff that we got from the press release. The Canon is aiming for a 2024 release. So does that mean that they might miss the release of the full version of this camera? Because remember, this is a development announcement. Development announcements mostly don't give us a ton of information. Even though we already knew that the R1 was coming, this is the first time they're telling us that they're developing it, which means they can get it into people's hands. They can get pre-production units out to the Olympics when the Olympics happens so that it can be seen in the wild, and they don't have to worry about hiding it or leaking it or anything along those lines because we have a development announcement. I think they'll be able to get some of them out in limited quantity in 2024, but I don't think that will happen till at least September, October, maybe November, leading up to the end of the year in limited quantity. Now, this is their flagship camera. The R3, which is right here, was not considered their flagship, even though I've been using it as a flagship because it's just that good of a camera. So here's something that we know. We don't know a lot. Canon didn't tell us very much, but what we do know is that there is a new imaging processing system that combines a newly developed image processor called the Digic Accelerator with the pre-existing Digic X processor. So the new camera will still have a Digic X processor, but like what Sony did in the A9 III, is they gave it a separate processor to process for autofocus information and to crunch all of the data that is coming off of the image sensor. This is called the Digic Accelerator. Accelerator. Doesn't sound as good as L-Mount Alliance. Now on to the sensor. How many megapixels is it? I don't know. They didn't tell us. But what we do know is that it is a new CMOS sensor. No mention of megapixels. We don't know if it's global or not. I'm gonna tell you, I'm pretty sure that it's not a global sensor shutter. It's going to have an extremely fast readout speed, but I don't think they are up to a global shutter yet on Canon side, and I think that this is the holdover, and in the future, you will start to see a global shutter. We got no video specs. We don't know how many frames per second it can shoot, but we do know that it has the brand new accelerator processor and a new CMOS sensor. Now here's a quote: enables large volumes of data to be processed at high speeds and delivers never before seen advancements in autofocus. Now we all know that autofocus systems have gotten so good in these cameras. It's not about how fast they are, it's about how accurate they can be. And with them saying that it enables large volumes of data to be processed, that means that the sensor must have the capability of squeezing out a ton of information quickly. Does that mean this camera is going to shoot at 40 frames a second, 60 frames a second? Is there the 120 frames a second or 240 frames a second? We don't officially know yet, and we don't know when we will get more specs, and this is really what we have right now. I can only speculate that it's going to be fast. I can only speculate that it's going to have pre-shooting. It has to have pre-shooting in this day and age to compete with the other cameras that are out there in the wild. I mean, even Panasonic is doing pre-shooting, Nikon is doing it, but not in RAW just yet. Now let me read over some of this because this is interesting about the autofocus capabilities, which is what they're focusing on right now with this development announcement. Now this is from the press release, and I'm just going to summarize it for you. They're using deep learning technology. Canon has achieved high-speed accuracy subject recognition. Basically what they're getting at is when a subject crosses the frame or somebody gets in front of them, the deep learning is going to better be able to estimate where that subject is going to come out on the other side. So if the subject was going left to right and somebody comes in front of them, they're going to more than likely be able to track that subject to the edge of the frame. And if somebody leaves the frame and then comes back, it's possible that it's going to recognize that subject left the frame, but might be on the way back in the frame. I don't know how they're going to be able to do this, but with that new Digic Accelerator, maybe it is possible. possible. There's also the addition of the AF Action Priority function, which recognizes subjects' movements by rapidly analyzing the subject's status. I don't know how they do that. I don't know what they can read, but this is talking about being able to predict what's going to happen next. So maybe you can get to gambling on it because you're like, this is what's going to happen next. I'm going to gamble. I don't gamble. I don't believe in gambling. That is not my jam. Now, further on in the press release, it says Canon is working on field tests for this camera. Well, I certainly hope so. Hey, Canon, can I field test this camera? I got a baseball pass. I like to go out to the Phillies. I think that would be a good test for this camera. So please pick me. I'd like to test this camera. And the biggest spec and news that they've given us is the fact that they didn't give us any specs and news, and any major specs. And I'm sorry I said that earlier, that you had to wait to the end to do that. That's a little bit of like clickbait, because I'm just like, whatever. We don't know a lot. And my question to Canon is, why now? Why are you giving us a development announcement with nothing? Morsels of crumbs about the autofocus, which we suspect was going to be great anyway. But I think the most important stuff, top line stuff, sensor size, how many megapixels, how many frames per second can we shoot, and the autofocus is going to be improved. If you gave us those three things, I think people would be much more happy. But we're still left in the dark. I don't know why. I think part of the reasons they did this is that, look, the Olympics is coming up. They want to get it out into the wild, but they slow rolled us on this one. The development announcement for the R1, this is it. Better autofocus, you got a new processor in there, that's all well and good, but we want to know how fast can it shoot, what are the big deal specs, how many megapixels does it have, give us some video specs, not that I care so much about that, but that's it. That's the development announcement. I will do my best to try to find out as much information as possible. If I'm able to get my hands on one and I'm allowed to share with you as much as I can share with you, I will. This camera is built for me. We've been waiting for it. Do I think people are going to be disappointed in the end? Maybe the expectations were set so high for this that maybe they will be. But in this day and age, they're going to create something fantastic, but is it going to be good enough for most of the people to sit out there and not question whether they're trying to catch up to Sony or maybe they surpass Sony? I don't think that Canon needs to do a global shutter sensor right now to do it. Their sensor readout speeds of even the Canon R8, a $1,000 on sale full frame camera, is fantastic at 40 frames a second in that camera. And that's not even a stacked sensor. So I think this is going to go beyond 40 frames per second in full res. I think they're going to go much further than that. I can't wait to see what happens, but Canon, I wish you gave us a little bit more. What do you guys think about this? Leave some comments down below. Quick little plug here. If you're looking to take better shots in low light situations and you haven't gotten my free guide, go over to FroKnowsPhoto.com. Just look for this orange box over on the website. Put your name, email address in it, hit send it. I'm going to end up sending you that guide for free. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.